Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. And today, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at how we can use everyday activities to help us learn a new language.
Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, well, shouldn't I be, memorizing verb conjugations and, really hitting the textbooks hard? But trust me on this one. There are some really effective and fun ways that you can boost your fluency.
Yeah.
Without it feeling like you're back in school.
That's right. I think what's really interesting is that our brains are really wired for language acquisition. We don't always need formal instruction. We just need the right kind of exposure and interaction. And that's where I think our secret weapon comes in.
Shopping. Okay. I'm intrigued. You say that, browsing the aisles of my local supermarket is actually going to help me learn English. Tell me more.
Absolutely. When you think about it, when you're shopping, you're constantly engaging with language. You're reading signs, you're looking at labels, prices, you're making decisions. You might even be chatting with shop assistants. It's a natural language learning environment, just waiting to be tapped into.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. But how do we transform a trip to the grocery store into like a language lesson?
Well, it starts with something incredibly simple, your shopping list. Instead of writing it in your native language, try writing it in English. It sounds basic, I know, but it's a really great way to start building your vocabulary.
I can see that. Instead of just grabbing things and throwing them in my basket, I'm actually having to think, okay, what is the English word for this? Milk, eggs, bread. It's like a mental warm-up before I even get to the store.
Exactly. It goes beyond just memorizing individual words, though. When you're writing your shopping list in English, you're actually engaging in what's called self-talk. You're shifting your internal monologue, that voice that we all have in our heads, into English mode.
Self-talk. I've heard of that before. But I never really connected it to language learning. So just by, thinking about my grocery list in English, I'm actually training my brain to think in English.
Precisely. Research has actually shown that self-talk can be a very powerful tool for language acquisition. It helps you internalize grammar structures, it helps you practice pronunciation, and it can even build confidence in your speaking abilities.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I'm already feeling much more motivated to throw out my old shopping list and get a fresh one and start writing everything down in English.
I bet you'll be surprised by how quickly those everyday words start sticking in your mind. It's like passive learning, but with a purpose.
So we've tackled the shopping list. What's the next step in our shopping for fluency adventure?
Okay, so now that you've got your list in hand, it's time to really turn up the volume on that self-talk. Imagine that you're giving a running commentary of your entire shopping trip, like you're a sportscaster, narrating a game.
Oh, I like that. It's like I'm giving a play-by-play to my invisible friend, describing everything I see, everything I do, every decision I'm making. Okay, I'm walking down the cereal aisle.
Do I want the crunchy granola or do I want the fruity flakes?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to really get descriptive. Instead of just saying apple, try and say that's a bright red apple. That looks juicy and crisp. This is going to force you to use more adjectives, more descriptive language, which is really crucial for fluency.
Right. It's not just about knowing the basic words. It's about being able to use the language to paint a picture. But what happens if I come across something that I don't know the word for in English? Do I just kind of give up and move on?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's where the real learning happens. Instead of getting stuck, try describing the item based on its characteristics.
Okay, so if I'm staring at this weird-looking vegetable that I've never seen before, I could say something like, oh, it's long and green. And it has bumpy skin. It kind of looks like a cucumber.
Yeah.
With spikes, exactly. Not only are you practicing your descriptive language, but you're training your brain to come up with creative workarounds, which is a really essential skill for any language learner. And who knows? You might even learn the actual word for it from a fellow shopper or a store employee.
Speaking of learning new words, have you ever noticed how much vocabulary is kind of hidden in plain sight on product labels? It's like a mini dictionary explosion in every aisle.
It's true. Product labels are a goldmine for language learning. Think about it. You've got ingredients lists, which are packed with nouns. You've got cooking instructions, which use verbs and adverbs. Nutritional information, which often uses comparative language.
Wow. I never really thought about it that way before. It's not just random text. It's a carefully crafted lesson in English vocabulary. And the best part is, it's all presented in context, which I think makes it so much easier to remember.
Exactly. That contextual learning is key because it helps your brain connect words to their meanings and to their usage. It's far more effective than just trying to memorize. lists of vocabulary words out of context.
You know, this reminds me of this one time I bought this imported pasta, and the cooking instructions were all in Italian, and I ended up having to use Google Translate, like in the middle of the grocery store, which was kind of a disaster. But looking back, I probably learned more Italian in those like frantic 10 minutes that I did in, a whole week of studying.
That's a perfect example. You were forced to engage with the language in a real-world situation, and that kind of immersive experience can be incredibly powerful.
So even though I burned the pasta that night, at least I expanded my Italian vocabulary. We'll call that a win. Okay, what's next on our shopping list of language learning tips?
So far, we've been focusing on how to make the most of our time as solo shoppers, but let's not forget about a really valuable resource that's standing right there in the aisles with us, the shop assistants.
That's a great point. I've always been a little bit hesitant to approach them, especially when I'm not really confident in my English.
I understand that feeling, but trust me, interacting with shop assistants is one of the best ways to boost your fluency and your confidence. It's like having a built-in language partner right there in the store.
But what if I freeze up?
Yeah.
Or I can't understand what they're saying?
That's totally normal. The key is to start with simple, polite phrases that you can practice beforehand. Like, excuse me, where can I find the XMB? Or, could you help me with?
Okay, those are manageable. I can definitely practice those. But what if I'm in a country where English isn't the main language? Does it still make sense to try speaking English to shop assistants?
Absolutely. Even if they don't speak English fluently, a lot of shop assistants will have at least a basic understanding, especially in tourist areas. And even if they don't, the act of trying to communicate in English is still beneficial.
So it's more about pushing myself outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And, getting those English-speaking muscles working.
Exactly. It's like any skill. The more you practice, the more confident and fluent you become. And who knows, you might even have a surprisingly delightful conversation along the way.
I love that. It's like turning every shopping trip into like a mini adventure. Speaking of adventures, this whole shopping as language learning thing, it's not limited to just groceries, is it?
Not at all. You can apply these same principles to any kind of shopping. Clothes, electronics, furniture, you name it. And what's interesting is how the vocabulary shifts. Depending on what you're buying.
Oh, that's a good point. Like if I'm shopping for clothes, I might need to know words like size, fit, style, fabric. Whereas if I'm shopping for electronics, it's more about specs, features, compatibility.
Exactly. And don't forget about all the specialized vocabulary. For different types of stores, department stores, boutiques, online retailers, they all have their own kind of unique language and jargon.
Okay, let's put this into practice. Imagine I'm in a clothing store, desperately trying to find a shirt that doesn't make me look like I raided my grandpa's closet.
All right, let's set the scene. You found a shirt that you like, but it's not quite the right fit. What do you do?
Okay. I spot a friendly-looking shop assistant, and I walk up to them. And I say, excuse me, do you have this shirt in a different,
Good. Not bad. You used a polite phrase to get their attention,
Not bad.
and you clearly stated what you're looking for. But instead of cut, which can be a little bit vague, you could try something like style or fit.
Oh, right. Do you have this shirt in a different style? That sounds much more natural. I'm learning so much already.
You're natural. And here's another really fun way to integrate language practice into your shopping trips. Numbers and deals.
Yes, I was hoping we'd get to this. Turning those tempting discounts into like a mental math workout in English. Sounds like a win-win to me.
It is. Instead of just grabbing that 50% off item, challenge yourself to calculate the final price in your head in English.
Okay, so let's say I see a pair of shoes that were originally $80 and they're now 30% off.
All right. Walk me through your calculation process.
Okay, so 10% of $80 is $8. So 30% would be $24. That means the final price is $56. Did I get it right?
You nailed it. And you did it all in English, which is fantastic. You're not only improving your language skills, but you're also sharpening your mental math abilities.
That's like a secret brain-boosting mission, disguised as a shopping spree. I love it.
Exactly. And to make it even more challenging, try doing it with multiple items. Suddenly you're adding, you're subtracting, you're multiplying, all in English. It's a mental workout. That's actually fun.
I'm already feeling smarter. And my wallet is thanking me too. Okay, what's the last stop on our language learning shopping spree?
Let's talk about something that might seem a bit old school, but trust me, it's incredibly valuable, keeping a shopping journal.
A shopping journal. I'm intrigued. I usually just toss my receipts in my bag and forget about them.
I know it sounds a bit archaic in this digital age, but hear me out. There's something really powerful about reflecting on your experiences and putting them into words, even if it's just a few sentences after each shopping trip.
So it's not about keeping track of my spending, it's about documenting my language learning journey.
Exactly. Think of it as like a language learning diary. You can write about the new words that you encountered, the conversations that you had, even the funny mishaps or triumphs that you experienced.
I can see how that would be really helpful. It's like turning those fleeting moments of learning into something more tangible and lasting.
Precisely. And as you go back and reread your entries, you'll be able to track your progress over time. You'll notice how your vocabulary expands, your sentences become more complex, and your confidence grows. It's a tangible record of your language learning journey.
Wow. This is making me want to grab my notebook and head to the mall right now.
That's
Before I do, is there anything else we should keep in mind as we embark on these language learning shopping adventures?
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how many language learning opportunities are hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered. It's like we've unlocked a secret level in the game of fluency. It's like we've unlocked a secret level in the game of fluency.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's funny because you mentioned games, and it made me think about, all those language learning apps out there that try to gamify the experience. But what we're talking about here is like real life gamification. It's so much more engaging and immersive.
Exactly. It's not just about memorizing flashcards. It's about actually using the language in a real-world context. And, when you think about it, we've only just scratched the surface here of how we can turn everyday activities into language learning experiences.
Okay, so spill the beans. What other hidden gems do you have up your sleeve?
Oh, well, how about cooking? We all have to eat right, so why not turn meal prep into a chance to practice your English?
Oh, I love that. Instead of just, mindlessly following a recipe, I can actually engage with the language.
Exactly. Instead of relying on translated recipes, try finding recipes in English, online, or in cookbooks.
Right. So suddenly chopping vegetables and measuring ingredients becomes a vocabulary lesson.
Exactly. And as you become more comfortable with the language, you can even try following along with cooking shows or videos in English.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea. It's like a fully immersive culinary and linguistic experience.
Precisely.
Okay. What about something a little less edible that doesn't involve me potentially setting off the smoke alarm in my kitchen?
Let's talk about social media. We all spend way too much time scrolling through our feeds anyway, so why not make it a little more productive?
Okay. I have a feeling you're about to suggest I ditch the funny cat videos and start following English language accounts.
Not necessarily ditch the cats, but definitely diversify your feed.
Okay.
Following English language accounts, reading articles, even just trying to comment or post in English. It's all valuable practice.
Right. It's like getting a crash course in modern English, straight from the source.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even make some new friends from around the world along the way.
Oh, that'd be amazing. So we've gone from shopping lists to social media. And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of turning everyday activities into language learning adventures.
That's the beauty of it, really. The possibilities are endless. It's all about shifting our perspective and being open to the opportunities that are all around us.
This has been such an inspiring and insightful conversation. I'm already starting to see my daily routine in a whole new light.
I'm glad to hear that.
So what's the key takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important message is language learning doesn't have to be a chore. It can be an integrated, joyful, and surprisingly effortless part of our daily lives.
It's about finding those hidden opportunities, embracing the challenge, and having fun along the way.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even discover a passion for something new while you're at it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and enthusiasm with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, remember, the journey to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint.
That's right.
So embrace the small steps, celebrate the victories, and never stop exploring.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more unconventional tips and tricks to help you achieve your language learning goals.
Until next time, happy learning.
I never realized how many language learning opportunities are hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered. It's like we've unlocked a secret level in the game of fluency.
It really is. And you know what's funny? You mentioned games. It made me think about all those language learning apps out there that try to gamify the whole experience. But what we're talking about here is it's like real-life gamification. It's so much more engaging and immersive.
Absolutely. It's not just about, memorizing flashcards or taking quizzes. It's about actually using the language in a meaningful way. And you know what? I think we've only scratched the surface here of how we can transform all sorts of everyday activities into these incredible language learning experiences.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. What other hidden gems do you have up your sleeve?
Well, let's think about something we all do every day. How about cooking? We all have to eat right.
That's true.
So why not turn meal prep into a chance to practice our English?
Oh, I love that. So instead of just, mindlessly following a recipe, I can actually engage with the language.
Exactly. Instead of always relying on recipes that have been translated, try finding recipes in English, online, or in cookbooks.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then suddenly chopping vegetables and measuring ingredients, it all becomes part of this vocabulary lesson.
Precisely. And as you become more comfortable with the language, you could even try following along with cooking shows or videos in English.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. It's like a fully immersive culinary and linguistic experience.
It really is.
Okay. But what about something a little less edible that doesn't involve me potentially setting off the smoke alarm in my kitchen?
Well, let's talk about something that we probably all spend a little too much time doing already. Social media.
Ah, yes. The double-edged sword of the modern age.
Exactly. But we can make it work for us. We can turn it into a language learning tool.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do we do that?
Well, for starters, try diversifying your feed. Follow some English language accounts. Maybe some news outlets, some bloggers, some YouTubers, whatever interests you.
Okay.
Read articles in English. And, even just try commenting or posting in English.
Right, so it's like getting that constant exposure to the language.
Exactly. It's about immersing yourself in that real-world English, the kind of English that people actually use, not just the textbook stuff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So we've gone from shopping lists to cooking to social media, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of all the amazing ways that we can incorporate language learning into our everyday lives.
It's true. The possibilities really are endless.
This deep dive has been so inspiring. I'm already starting to see my whole daily routine in a new light.
That's wonderful to hear.
So as we wrap up here, what's the main message that we want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing to remember is language learning doesn't have to be this separate, difficult thing that we dread. It can be integrated into our lives in a way that feels natural and enjoyable.
It's about finding those opportunities that are already there.
Exactly.
And just, shifting our perspective a little bit.
It's about making language learning a part of who we are, rather than something we have to force ourselves to do.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun on your language learning journey.
That's right.
And don't forget, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more unconventional tips and tricks to help you reach your language goals. Until next time, happy learning.